Today I'm here with multiple world champion in CANICROSS, Tessa Philippaerts, to answer your questions about CANICROSS. Welcome, Tessa.
Hi. Welcome, everybody.
Let's get started. So a common question that comes up by several people actually is, at what age can you start training your dog for CANICROSS?
Yeah, that's a pretty difficult question. There are so many opinions and things one has to look at. I like to say that I'm teaching my dogs before they are 12 months old, and from 12 months I start to train them for CANICROSS. So with teaching, I mean I am going to try to train them all the simple steps like separately from the whole training session, everything from line out, standing still in the start, teaching them left and right. And I'm trying to do all of this before they turn 12 months out. So once I am starting to train them properly, they know exactly what they have to do without that they had to train hard for it. So I'm going to break down everything in steps. And then my dogs know exactly what to do when they're 12 months old before we are starting to train. We always say like from 12 to, a dog is not fully grown between 12 and 18 months, depending on the breed. Some dogs are completely finished growing at 12 months old, but between 12 months and 18 months, you try to, at least I try to train them pretty easy. Like, don't let them work too hard, don't go too long distances. And once they are 18 months old, then I can start to like prepare proper distances, go train them a little bit harder, ask a little bit more from them. Something I've seen other people do, and which I think is interesting also, is that you could take like a picture of your dogs, like X-ray, because then you can see if the growth plates in the knees and in other parts of the body are closed, and then you can safely say like, okay, the growth plates are closed now. My dog is fully grown. Now we can start to train, and this can be different from each dog to another dog. I've seen pictures from litter mates, for example, where there was a female who was finished at 18 months, for example, and the male was already finished growing at 12 months. Okay. So it's not only the breed, but it's super individual. And I think it's really interesting. So if you want to be really sure, this is something you can take into consideration.
I also think that I see with a lot of racers, even though they start racing with the dog on like the shorter distances, the first season is about experiences. Get used to the environment of racing, the start, like this whole thing. So you don't have to stress so much on like, okay, I have to hit a certain distance or a certain time. Like take the first time of your dog's life to just, for the experiences and to learn.
Yes, because if they're so young and you're pushing them too much, also bad experiences can also happen. So when they're super young, they don't really know how to process this information when it happens. So you can also really like spook them. So it's super important to keep it easy and simple in the start and prepare them, like you say, for everything, like race situations, not only, like I said, left, right, line out, race situations, stress, teach them to be calm around the start line before you are actually doing something there. Free running, is, if you can, and if you have a dog with good recall, is really nice because it's so good for the young dog's body to run in terrain. Like it goes a little bit up, down. It's super good for their bodies and like their reflexes. They are building up their stamina and building up their bodies on their own speed. When I do free running with my puppies also, they are never running with the adults because they're trying to chase them, and they are going to push themselves way too much if they have another or an adult dog in front. So I try to take them alone. You also usually get better contact with them when they are alone. So there's no distractions or less distractions. So yeah. So I would advise to not have another crazy dog in front when they are that young. When they're fully grown again, then it's no problem. Then you can let them loose with the big guns and they can run fast. But it's super important to protect their body in the beginning and not get injured before you even get started.
There is actually someone that has been asking about, because we use interval training quite a lot, and how much break you have between intervals.
It depends. We always say the shorter and faster the intervals, the longer break you should have. So if I do like 500 meter intervals, I usually can take like a little longer break, like 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes. The problem is like if you do like this threshold training and track and field, the point is that you run at a certain speed where you don't get this lactic acid in your legs. But in CANICROSS, this is basically impossible if the dog is pulling hard. So if I do like 1 kilometer intervals, I take like around 3 minutes break. If I run without the dog, if I do 1 kilometer intervals, I would rather do 1 minute break, have a really short break, and run slower. But like I said, the speed is CANICROSS is something different. So you need to recover a little bit. Of course, the first times you do this, you might be really tired. It's no problem to take longer intervals the first times you do this type of training. And then you just, each training, try to make the breaks a little bit shorter. So yeah, my favorites are like 500 and 1K intervals. So for 500 meter, 3 to 5 minutes. For 1K, 2 to 3 minutes, I would say.
I also see that we often like base it on how the dog is looking. Now it's been a bit like higher temperatures, higher humidity. Even if we did 1 kilometer interval, we had like a quite long break until we saw that like, okay, the dogs are a bit calmer again, and like their pulse went down a little bit. Then we run again.
Exactly. So the point is that you manage to do all these intervals in more or less the same speed, depending, like, of course, if you run uphill and downhill, there's a difference in speed there, but that you more or less try to run them at the same speed. So you need to be able to manage to run the last one.
Yes.
So it's important to take good rest.
But talking about injuries, there was a person wondering, how do you protect injured ankles at CANICROSS speeds?
I know everything about this. When I started with CANICROSS, I ran with a whippet and a border collie, but even then I twisted my ankles so many times that I don't know if I still have ligaments left in my feet. But I never had a problem when I run without dogs, but when I ran with dogs, I twisted my ankles on so many races. So in the end, I started to look into like these ankle braces to see that's something that could support me, because it was just like it's pretty high strain on your body. If you already think I'm unsure how much it was, but I think like if you're running, each time you put a step down, it's like 2 or 3 times your body weight on your legs when you're not running with a dog.
Okay,
like the impact. So I can imagine if you run with a dog, it's much more.
Yes.
So I started looking into these ankle braces that you can. There are different types. You have some that you can put in your shoe. You have some that you attach on outside of the shoe. I've tried pretty much all of them, and I have just now a system that's on the outside of my shoe. I like it very well, but I only use it when I am running with a dog. Because I want to train my ankles, of course, to get strong by themselves. And when I run without a dog, I always run without it. But when I use a dog, it's so much safer. And since I have it, I think the last ones I bought are now 10 years old. I have not twisted my ankle once since that time. So it saves you some trips to the hospital and a lot of recovery time. So if you have bad ankles like me, then I could highly recommend just some braces.
I think it also helps with the confidence.
Yes.
You're not so like stressed because you have that extra safety.
Yes, I know in the downhills I can just go full speed because I almost don't even have to look at any routes or whatever, because I know I cannot twist my ankles.
Some people were actually wondering if it's possible to do CANICROSS with small dogs like a Maltese, that they mostly only see big dogs running CANICROSS, but can you do CANICROSS with a small dog?
Yes, of course. Of course you can. It's just everything is about respecting your own dog's limits. So if you have high expectations of becoming a world champion with a Maltese, I can tell you that it's very unlikely that will happen. But you can still have a dog that can pull almost the whole track. I used to run with a whippet, and she would run. She would run very well at the start, the first 1.5K, and then she always had a kilometer where she was not pulling that much. And then once she knew that the finish was there, she was pulling again, pretty much. She was also not a whippet is like a sight hound, so she's used to chase something and run super fast for a short period. So you cannot expect from her to be like a crazy pulling dog, but she did her best and she loved running and pulling, and we just always try to get a better time, like or a better average on the races. And I've had so many podium spots even with her. So it was super nice. And also when I started with this sport, like a lot of people were using the dogs that they had. Like I started with a Whippet. On the races in Belgium, it's like before it was a really good community. Like everybody was just starting with the dog they had. Like it didn't have to be like a super strong pulling dog. We had people starting with Chihuahuas, with like these big shepherds, or like this even like Danish dogs. Like everybody was just starting for the fun because they thought it was really nice. I think like the starting list in Belgium, maybe the top 5 were people that are like participating to go to win, and like 3/4 of the people were just people out there trying to do the best they could with their own dog. And I really like this like mentality that people just showed up, and they just had fun, and it was absolutely amazing. So I think people definitely don't have to be scared to do this sport with a small dog.
I think like any dog can do CANICROSS as long as they are fit for it and they enjoy running.
Yes.
So it's like it's really about just having fun with your dog.
Yes.
And you don't even have to join races.
No.
You can run by yourself. You can also join these group trainings, and
Yes.
there are a lot of different dogs. So it's only to try and see if you like it. And it's actually sometimes a lot more fun to run with a smaller dog than with one of these big dogs. Some people struggle with their dog's pulling. That my dog doesn't pull when we run. Can I teach her, or is it better to let her run as she wants?
The question is just what you like or what your goal is. Do you want her to pull all the time, or if you are totally fine with her just jogging right in front without any tension or beside you, then that's totally fine. CANICROSS is, you can do it in many ways. So you can do it the way it suits you. If you want to teach your dog to pull more, like you start from 0, from the line out to pulling in the harness to run to a ball or a toy. Then you just make the distance longer. In the end, you will need to put the toy around the corner so she cannot see it anymore. So then it gets a little bit harder until you can make like a whole lap.
Yes.
Back to the car, for example, and back to the house, where they always get their toy at the end of the training. So you can just start with this to work on motivation. There are different ways to train a dog to pull. You can also put your dog, if you have a dog that's already pulling very well, you can put it together with another dog, like in a team or something. And they usually learn from dogs that are more experienced, or you train in a group with other people running. Of course, usually it motivates your dog more to run when there's other dogs running with it. So there's so many ways to train them to pull or to get a little bit better at it. So I think it's definitely possible if you would like to.
I think it's also very important that you are building it up very gradually. That like, okay, maybe in the first training the dog is pulling for 100 meters, but pulling good. You stop on like the peak in a way. That's like, okay, they're still doing amazing, and like take that further and then just increase the distance little by little, not straight away go for 5 kilometers.
Yes, exactly. Like I always work with intervals. It's works super wonders for the motivation of your dog as well. And it doesn't mean if you run always intervals and stop that they cannot run a longer distance in like one stretch. So I have never had problems with it actually.
Someone from Japan is actually saying that there they are struggling, that there is only a very few trails that they can run on, and they often have to run on concrete roads. What should they be careful about?
I think they should definitely like. I think physiotherapy and like searching out a certain physio that can help you with this might help, because I think like we said earlier, like the strain on the body is already really hard, but then if you run on a concrete, it's even more, and it's also chafing a little bit more on the feet. So maybe they should have some like good booties, like we have the protector bootie. They do wonders on concrete, and also if the concrete is a little bit warm, these ones are actually perfect. But like I think the body needs a little bit more recovery time maybe after if you train a lot on pavement. So maybe train maximum 1 day in a row, for example, like 1 day break. But I would definitely recommend to go to a dog physio, and set up a plan with them. They have so much knowledge about the dog's body, and they can also see like if you have trained a little bit, like, oh, now your dog is a little bit stiff, or now he needs some rest. So I really like to work with a dog physio myself also, for our dogs. They are, it's the same for us. I actually take more care of my dogs to go to the physio than I do for myself.
Can relate to that, but the dogs get better care than we do ourselves. Yes. But I think it's a very good point that you mentioned, because I feel many people are worried about the paws, that like, that the paw will get worn on the asphalt. But it's not really about that. It's actually about, like, if you just think about yourself, the shoes that you use on the road are usually like very padded, and you need a lot of cushioning, because it's harder on the body. Like the surface is very hard, and it's the same for the dogs. It's actually the dog's body that will get
the impact there. Yeah.
Also, maybe for them, it's nicer not to go like full speed if it's possible for the dog to like get a bit like
I think CANICROSS, and that way CANICROSS on pavement is probably better than bike touring or scooter on pavement.
At which point can you try races?
I'm always thinking that you should come prepared. If you go to a race, of course you can run a fun race. Like in Norway, for example, we have like this fun category. If you just want to try to see what it's all about, you can of course start in the fun category. But I would like at least want my dog to be able to run the distance. So if you know that, okay, the race is going to be 3 or 5 kilometer, then you build up with like these interval trainings till you manage to come to 5K, or preferably a little bit over it. So you have like some extra reserve when you go to a race. You should also prepare for like we said, like the trail profile. If it's a lot of up and down, of course, you're going to run much slower than when it's super flat. So you should prepare like all of these steps before you come home. I would also like go to a race before without competing, just to see sniff up the atmosphere, see how your dog reacts. Is he very stressed with all the sounds? And if you see that your dog is pretty relaxed and manages all these things, then I think you are probably like also passings. Like try to do some passings before you come to a race. If you see that your dog is not like super comfortable with passings, or if he wants to go annoy another dog, I think you can still participate in a race if you want to, if he manages the distance. But then you just have to be aware that your dog is not great in passing. So if you hear somebody coming that's going to pass you, take him in short, hold him beside you, let the other person pass. Then there should not be a problem actually. I would prepare all these steps before I go to a race. At least if you don't want to do like only the fun category and want to go immediately for the like normal races.
Absolutely. And it's all about just being aware of what your dog is able to do and how they react to situations, and to respect that. So for example, I did compete with a young dog before, and I was like, I am not 100% sure how they react on passing. So then I talk with the people like behind me or in front of me if I thought that I will overtake them. But mostly like with the people behind me to like, okay, you have to like scream, just like really tell me, because then I have the time to react, go forward, like take my dog to make sure that like, okay, this will be like a smooth passing for both of us.
Yes.
So just communicate with the other people around. They will appreciate it. You will have a better experience. The dog will have a better experience. So yeah, I think everyone is welcome at races as long as, like you think about these small things. That's like, you can have passing. Yeah, you have to start. And the dog should manage the distance in order to have like a good experience.
And it's also like, get to know the race rules. They might be a little bit different depending on which country you are. So if you're going to race in another country, check them out. But like the things I know that people care about the most is the passing rules. So like if you pass somebody, just make yourself very noticeable that you are coming, and you're coming in a high speed usually. So just yell pretty loud. It doesn't matter. Just just say like trail or whatever your country is using, and then the people at least have the time to go on the side. Even you think like, oh, but my dog is super nice, I don't have to say anything. The next person's dog maybe is not so nice or struggling with something. So just always make sure that that you're saying that you're there. The same if you go training on tracks and just meet other people in the forest. Just say, like, give a heads up, like hello, or I'm coming. I don't know, something to make just notice that you're there, because those people don't know. We run much faster with a dog usually than we do without. So it's just so nice that people get the chance to go on the side or take care of their dog.
Absolutely. And it's important, because I feel many new people in the sport don't think about this, and it's like completely okay. You're new to the sport, you don't have to know everything. But it's not only about reactive dogs, about like passing. Like the dog is also not allowed to say hi, even if they have good intentions, just want to play. It's so hard to get these are unfortunately like bad experiences for the other dog, to get these bad experiences out, so that they don't start to like react on other dogs. It's like, it's very important to just be respectful of it. Even if your dog has the best intentions, just like no saying hi on the trail. They can maybe say hi on the stakeout or like at the race venue. You can like talk with people, and if it's okay, of course, like dogs can say hi, but not on the trail. Then they should just focus on the working. Another question we got is actually about proper running form for the human. How to avoid hurting yourself and running fast with your dog.
Yeah, it's very rare that I run canicross with my dogs. Like, even in the off season, I will not do almost any canicross. But once the racing season is coming, I run like almost maximum one time a week canicross with them, just to prepare my body. But I try to train myself separately. I love to do canicross, but my dogs are so strong that I would just get injured. So I think it's more important for me to prepare my body properly. Like, I do, like we talked earlier, like interval trainings myself. It doesn't mean that if I do interval trainings myself, you don't need to do it on a track. You can do it in the forest. You can do it in the terrain. My dogs still join me. They can run free running, the warm up. If I go to the track, I always take them with me. They're doing the warm up with me, the cool down, and then for the rest, when I'm doing my intervals on the track, they're sitting in the car. But if I do it in the forest, they can run free the whole time. They can join. It's like all about being a little bit creative there. And I like to train my dogs with the bike or the scooter, because I can train them. Most dogs, they think it's also a little bit boring to always run at our speed.
Yes.
They're obviously faster than us. So they like to go a little bit faster. So I like to train them with the bike or the scooter. But since I'm not participating for a bike or scooter, I'm not going to let them go like 30 kilometers an hour. I am trying to keep them around my pace, but maybe slightly faster than my own pace. Just to give them like this, it's motivating to not always have to work really hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I like to train them with a bike and a scooter like 2-3 times a week.
Yes.
If I do canicross, then it's, I don't think I train much more with my dogs than 3 times a week pulling. So maybe it's 1 canicross session, 2 bike and scooter sessions, and for the rest they're running free or walking on the leash.
I think for the running form, it can also help a lot that in canicross you run a lot faster than your usual pace, so that you actually do some speed training on the track and field, so that you're used to that speed and can then keep your form a little bit better when running with your dog. And
I like to do these drills. So I don't know, most of you might have seen or looked at some Instagram reels or where you see people doing these drills and they look totally crazy, and but they really help. Like, you will look really funny in the beginning, but you will get better much faster if you do them, and you will also become better at doing the drills. And it's like some kind of power training almost, and you can just integrate them as a warm-up. Even if you go jogging, you could just do it after just a kilometer, do some drills, just jog. Do it before your interval trainings. It's a super, super good way to warm up your whole body as well. And at the same time, it's like, it has everything. It's a little bit power training, coordination. You're making new connections to the brain on how to use your body properly. So your running style will improve drastically also with doing stuff like this.
Oh, that's a good one. Do you need to have a heart-pulling dog to do canicross?
No, we've talked about it earlier. Everything depends on what your preferences are, or what you want, or what you expect to do. So if you just want to go jogging with your dog every day and he doesn't need a pull, that's totally fine.
Yes. I know that some dogs are able to like differentiate a between like that they can run really hard and then they can also run lighter. I feel my dogs struggle a bit with it, so we are pretty clear with our expectation that we want them to pull like full power the whole trek. Obviously, we ensure that they are able to do that, but it's completely okay to go like, no, I actually want to run with my dog every day, because as we mentioned, like we are only able to run with our dogs like once a week because it's so hard on the body. So if you just want to have your dog accompany you on pretty much all of your runs, maybe it's actually nicer to have your dog just like trot in front of you, help you a very little bit, but just like have this small connection like through canicross that they are pulling you, they are attached. It's a bit different, not just free running. You have great control, but you can run a lot more with them, a lot longer distances, for example.
I have the same now with my older dogs, for example. I'm not expecting them, I'm not training them to pull that much anymore. They just join me on runs and I see they're trotting and that's totally fine. And but they can go 8 kilometers and they are 9 and 10 years old, and but they trot and they pull a little bit, and I think this is super nice. So I use my older dogs more for like the fun trainings.
But absolutely. So I think no, the answer is no, you don't need the hardest pulling dog, but I think then you need to just like decide what you want and train based on that.
It's also like for example, people think like, do you need a hard pulling dog to be the best also? I have an example of yesterday, me running with my 40-kilo dog, and he just, even if it's only uphill, he just completely destroys me. My running style looks like when I run with him because he's just too strong for me. So I run almost the same pace with a dog who is right under 30 kilo as when I run with him, because it's just too much power.
Yeah, you don't need necessarily a big dog, but I think like you still need, like they are hard pulling dogs, the 30 kilo dogs.
So but then if people say like, oh, they think bigger is better, I don't think it's always true.
No, it can be painful. I completely agree. How fit do I have to be for canicross?
Again, the question is like how hard working your dog is. Like I think if you have a hard pulling dog, then you should work like on like yourself, like train yourself pretty much also separately from your dog to just be able to withstand the shocks and do some power training, core stability, all of this stuff as well. So if your dog is not pulling that hard, you can just jog, you can walk, you can do like start to run with your dog. It's all about like the match between you and your dog. If you are a really good athlete and your dog is not really of a hard puller, you can still become better. Then you work more on you can still work together with your dog. But if you're running with a Chihuahua, for example, you can still run fast, but then you have to work more on your own training schedule.
I also think it's a bit like the dogs are mostly fitter and faster than us either way. So it will come down to you. So maybe like run as far as you are comfortable with, run as fast as you are comfortable with. And obviously like train for yourself, but don't expect the dog to help you. Like, I don't know if you're only trained for 5 kilometers and then like, okay, but my dog is like super fit and can run 10. Like, don't expect them to then just like struggle with you for that second 5 kilometers and pull you like crazy because you're out of breath already. I would only go as far as I am comfortable to do so. Does the kind of bungee leash used have a physical impact on the dog?
Yes, I would say yes. You have bungee leashes of different strength. For example, if you look at ours, the orange bungee leash, which is made for super strong dogs. If you would use the touring bungee, for example, who has a much more, how do you call it, easier, or like it's not as strong as the other bungee.
Yes.
So if you would run with a very hard working dog with the touring bungee, for example, on full speed, it would give him more shocks in his back than if you would run with the orange bungee leash we have. So it has an impact on the dog and your back also. Like if you have a really strong dog and have a bungee leash that doesn't match your dog's force, then you will get shocks in your back as well. Your dog, the same happens with your dog. So it is pretty important to use the right style of leash for your dog. Also the length has an impact. I don't know if there was a question about that also, maybe.
Yes, there is a question here where someone is canicrossing with our bike jeering line, which is then 2.8 meters instead of 2 meters, because they enjoy the lower pull angle. They were wondering if it's better to run with a long or a short line, and why.
I prefer to run with maximum 2 meters because I feel I don't have so much control of my dog on the 2.8, and if there's any sharp corners, then I feel like, and there's a tree, then my dog is already around the corner and the leash is hanging, is going behind the tree already. So I like to have it shorter, so I have better control on my dog, and just because of if you have technical trails, it might get a little bit more difficult when the bungee is longer. Also, the longer the bungee is, of course, the more like loss of power you have. Because with a bungee, of course, you cannot, the pulling force would not be the same as if you go with just a static line. But of course, it's not healthy for anybody's back to run with a static line. But you would have actually more pulling force if you have a static line than with a bungee. So the more bungee there is, the more loss of power there is also for your dog. So for canicross, I feel I'm so used to run with 2 meters. When I was starting with this sport, then there was 1.5 meter even. But I feel like 2 is for me the golden middle.
Yeah. I also think with passings, like if it's a long line, it's so confusing for the other dogs. They
go
just
under it. Yes. But you can also most of the belts, you can also adjust the front piece. Like you can make that one a little bit longer to have some extra centimeters. So you can play a little bit with that to have just a little bit extra if you need to.
I also think that the strength of the bungee also works like the other way. So for smaller dogs, it's a lot nicer not to have the strongest bungee, because then they have to work even harder to just first pull out the bungee and then pull the person. So it definitely has an effect both on the physical and a bit the mental part, that it's harder.
Yes, I also saw with my hound, for example, she can go very long distance, but she is not as strong as my GSP. So if I go and was biking with her, for example, or running with the orange bungee leash, I feel like she was, after the corner, she was almost catapulted back because the bungee was too strong for her and her weight. So then I started to use the touring bungee instead, and then I had this whole time this constant nice pull without any shock. So for her, it was better to have a less strong bungee, for example.
How do you train in areas where there is a lot of wildlife?
Yeah, I would also it depends on your dog. How good is your dog with recall? So if you have a dog that is very good in coming back, I don't think there's any problem to let them loose, if it's allowed in your country, of course, to have them loose there. It's a little bit difficult, but we in Norway, we have different parts in the season. For example, in the summer, when the young animals are spring, summer, when the young animals are getting born, and there's a lot of stuff happening in nature. Then here in Norway, we have this rule that the dogs are not allowed to run free. But you could also apply this for other countries. Even if your dog is allowed to run free in summer, maybe try to avoid those periods where all the tiny animals are who cannot fly that good yet or run that fast away if something happens, running around. So let them give the rest that they deserve and attach your dog or just jog with them on the collar, for example. And the other parts of the year where it's a little bit calmer, you can have them loose if you have a dog that's not so great on recall. But I would actually not really dare to let my dog loose if they don't have that good recall. So
But I think that is the beauty of CANICROSS, actually. Like, then the dog is attached, so you actually have a lot better control than when the dog is just free running. I would work on passing, actually. Try to just like give a clear command, try to pass, and eventually, hopefully, the dog is getting better and better at it.
Yes.
Obviously, it's hard when they have a strong prey drive and want to run after it. I would also probably rather just stop if I feel uncomfortable, like they are too strong, and try to pull towards the animal to not run up on them and hope for the best. But maybe then just stop and try to turn if you feel uncomfortable.
Yesterday also, right before my session with Petter, then Petter is my dog, by the way, there was a squirrel. So I just waited until he was calm before I started, because I thought if I'm gonna start now, he's gonna be banana. So it's just like he wouldn't go after it, but at the same time, I'm not gonna take the risk. We have had many times on trainings that there's maybe even a deer passing or something, but my dogs are so used to work and be so focused that they actually don't really. I've never had the problem that if something crosses while I'm bike riding, that my dogs are going after it and dragging me in the ditch or something. That has actually never happened. We have been doing this from when they are small, like teaching them to pull and to focus, and also whenever my dog is working as having a harness on, he's not allowed to say hi to any other dogs. That's like one of my rules. Like if he's in a harness, the only thing he's allowed to do is just to pull, go straight, don't bother anything around him. So I think that's a good rule, actually. So
I think that helps with the passing, that they learn that now we're not here to chase anything, to play with anything, to say hi to anything. Now we just have to run.
Yeah, and you can also just when you go on your daily walks and you meet another dog, and you can teach them a leave it command, that they should not interact. So then whenever you are biking and you see that there's an animal crossing the road, you can just say leave it. And if they master the command, they will leave it. Yes. So it's all about teaching them the right things even before you start. Almost the leave it command you can teach before you start to train properly with CANICROSS. If you have all these commands in before you start training properly, it makes everything so easier. Also with the directions. If your dog knows the directions before you're going to do CANICROSS,
yes,
it's so much easier. A dog will not be as insecure maybe if he makes a mistake, because he already knows the directions from the beginning.
And also just set them up for success if you have the possibility. Obviously with wildlife you don't necessarily know where they are, but we do have cows here in the summer, and I had a young dog and he was a bit interested. So then I knew that, okay, this is where the cows are. I do intervals where we are stopping before, then we just walk past them and go after, because I knew that he would not yet master to go past, and instead of having a bad experience where okay, he goes up to the cows, I was just okay, then we just cut that out. And then I used other dogs to okay, as long as they were running in front of him, he was focused on them, then it was just no problem, go past the cows. So if you know that there is, I don't know, also many wild animals, if you run at the same place very often, they are very often around the same places and areas. So if you are a bit unsure or you want to have extra control, you can stop before, put your dog on the collar, pass that area, and then just continue running, or again just use others that are running in front of you to help to keep your dog's focus.
Yes.
You did touch on this, but we can talk maybe a little bit more about it. The best way to train your dog to get faster.
Yeah, that's definitely also intervals. So, but you can also train in the beginning of the season. If I start up training, I have the training sessions pretty short, if I train with a bike and a scooter, pretty short, pretty powerful. So I let them work hard. So it's almost like power training. They are building up muscle So because if you want to get faster, you need to get stronger. So you need to build up some muscle to be able to support the body to run fast also. So in the beginning of the season, your dog can train a little bit more, like almost like power training sessions. You can do it short and uphill in CANICROSS if you don't want to train with a bike or the scooter. You can train uphill. You can also let them train in the summer, for example, with a backpack. So they are carrying some weights. So just to build up strength in the shoulders, other different parts of the body. We now work, I have a dog who's injured, who has problems with her back legs. So you work with like this, how do you call it, weight cuffs around the ankles, where you each time add like a coin into it. So there's so many ways to train up your like the body of your dog before the season. And then of course you can start after some weeks. You can start to not break as much, go a little bit more flat, make the distance a little bit longer. Always adjust like very easily. I usually have like this rule also that I don't go more than 10% every week. So if I used to train last
distance?
week, like distance and maybe also intensity. Like if I know that it's gonna be really fast, then I might also go a little bit shorter again. Because running fast, of course, means also getting more injuries. The faster you run, the more prone you are to injuries, both you and your dog. So then it also means you need a longer break. So if you run a really hard session, you need a proper day of rest.
Recovery.
Yes.
And also, it was like so important what you said. You have to prepare their body for the speed with the strength before you start with that.
It's the same with us. Like I used to be a sprint runner. Like the whole winter season when we were preparing for summer, when we're going to run fast, is almost power training. There's very little of... there is some running, of course, but it was so much power training, like preparing the body to run fast later. So,
very important. But in CANICROSS, I guess, you can just, as you said, do shorter intervals, but then faster. Find a faster trail, but then you can also then use the bike and just like release a bit more on the brake and let them run faster. How to start the training as a beginner?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like I have been sick for pretty many years now, so I started to build up training and I had to really begin from zero. So I started with walking. So I started to walk twice a week and maybe even have my dog pulling when I was hiking afterwards. But first I just went without the dog, kept the dog on a leash. I really started with walking. And then just like with jogging, with stops, like if I saw that my heart rate was super high, I just had to walk. It's almost like start to run. If you have like this start to run sessions, you can easily do this first without the dog. I would start, and then afterwards you can bring your dog. You can bring your dog jogging just on a leash and on the collar if that's possible. And then, like I said, like I had like read about this rule that you should not go for a runner if you have been injured or whatever. You should not go more up than 10% a week, or in the beginning even I took it 2 weeks before I went up. And this really worked because I did it differently last year, and then after the second interval training I was already injured. And this year I have managed to stay injury free until now. So so it's important to build it up slowly, but I think this 10% rule is actually pretty good. And start with walking, because you can walk uphill and get a pretty high pulse already.
Yes.
Like so it's definitely not a shame to start with walking. I did it too. So and I started for a long time with 2 sessions a week before I started more. And now I'm running 3, maybe last week's 4. So it's about the building it up. It's so boring to get injured.
Yes.
So like you lose so much months of training. So it's actually very good to be patient and build up. Rather take it a little bit too slow than too fast in the beginning, at least. So but this start to run sessions that you can find podcast about it online also, where you can listen to while you're running, and they say like, oh, now you're gonna take this many minutes break. Like they're super efficient to start to run.
We actually ourselves have an email course called Couch to 5K, which is taking people that are absolute beginners to 5K with their dogs. So I can recommend signing up to that. It's made by world champion Ben Robinson, so it's a very good one. Talking about Ben Robinson, we got a good question from one of his competitors, and it's, how can one be faster than Ben?
You know, we always say nothing is impossible, but I think this is a hard one.
I sometimes wonder about the same myself, just like regarding you, like, how can one run faster than Tessa? So
there are girls that run faster than me, so it is possible, as you can see. It just I think also, like, during the years I became smarter. Like, you can talk with people, you know. Like, I am a person that I like to share tips, or like, and you can ask me anything. I would not say like, oh, I have some super secrets, or no, that doesn't. I don't work that way. I don't think the sport can grow if people keep all this information for themselves. But I think, like, you can ask Ben, ask him how he trains.
How do it?
Yeah, I think you can ask him. I know that Ben also writes training programs for others, so he is already sharing his knowledge. So I think most of these athletes also, they are just normal people. You can just ask them questions, and I think we'll always be happy to help you.
Yeah.
And like I say, like, the sport is growing. Even in other sports, like you can see each year people like Jakob Ingebrigtsen is breaking the world records. So people think it was not possible to break it, but people develop new methods. We become smarter and better every year. So nothing is impossible.
No, nothing is impossible. And once you look at the speed of the track and field people, like, they're running faster without a dog on the same distances as we do with a dog. So
we run in terrain, though, our offense, but but still, yes. Compared to some track and field athletes, they could probably outrun us without the dog.
So yeah, also get inspo outside of the CANICROSS environment. Maybe look at them. But you will always have some, like, natural talents in a way.
Yes.
Like, even if you do the same training as Jakob Ingebrigtsen, I think, just to take him as an example, he has such a natural talent that it's very...
Yeah. And it's also, like, the type of muscle fibers you're born with. Like, so much stuff is genetics, but you need to train, and you have all these external factors that make you become better. Like, you might have bad genetics, to say it that way, but if you train properly, eat properly, have the right mental attitude, you can be almost just as good as the others. You can have somebody that is super talented, that eats that doesn't take care of himself, or this mental state, and then he will not be better than that other person that worked hard and everything. So there is, of course, there are people who have faster muscle fibers whatsoever, but you still need to put in the work.
And you also mentioned now that there is also so many things outside of the actual training session that one can work with. The rest, what one eats, like how you take the recovery. Like, if you are working in an environment where it's, like, very active, obviously it will delay your recovery.
Yes.
So one has to also think about these stuff.
Yes.
Now we are getting to the end of our questions soon. One that we can touch on is, how much water should I give to my dog before a CANICROSS session?
Yeah, that's a little bit also difficult to say. Depends on the size of the dog. For example, my 40-kilo male, he can drink 800 milliliters, a liter almost. But of course, I don't like just give him 1 liter of water and expect him to drink it. So we put some bait in the water, we call it, like put some, maybe just a spoon of meat or something in there, some electrolytes, and then I just let him drink it. But I don't start with a liter either. I first put maybe a little bit more, 3 spoons of meat, and just 100, 200 milliliters of water to get them used to drinking a lot of water.
Yes.
But now my dogs are at this point that they know if they are getting a lot of water, they know they're going to train. So they are they're drinking up the whole bowl immediately. So because I don't want to give too much food when I'm watering them in that process, and we give it around 2 hours before the training or race. So obviously also if I don't have much time, if I have only 1 hour, I will give him like half of this, and he gets
like
only
less in the
500
stomach.
milliliter. My GSP, who's 25 kilos, if I give her like 500 milliliters, she will pee all the time. So her, I can only give like 300 milliliters, for example, 400, then it's more enough for her. While I have another female who is 25 kilos, and she can drink half a liter with no problems. And
will depend a lot on the dog.
yes,
And
so
also one has to go gradually, otherwise
Yes.
they will not take it up. They will just
yeah,
pee
I
out
would
everything.
just try it, like start with 100, 200 milliliters and just add more until you see like, okay, if after the training they keep on peeing the whole time, stop the pee, then
Yes.
it's too much, then you should give a little bit less. They should be hydrated, but they should not be overhydrated. Like, it's also not a good thing. So yeah, when you get to that point.
I also have to consider that then you need to take out the dog beforehand
Yes.
a bit more often.
Yes. 15 minutes at least, then go and take them out after they got water.
One was wondering, where do you find events in the US? And I think we don't necessarily know exactly for the US, but we can give some tips on how in general to find events.
Yeah, I know some clubs in the US, like for example, one of the biggest one is like the North American CANICROSS Club. They have many events, and I think if you reach out to them, they can also help you with finding events in other places. We also have like on the Nonstop Dogwear website, I know there's like this activity calendar. So some events that we're helping out with, that Nonstop is helping out with, they can check there. There's also a list of races. Maybe you find some in the neighborhood there. There's many clubs around there. So I think if you can find maybe the federation, like the national federation, they know pretty much who their clubs are. So they can help you out to find something in the neighborhood. And if there is nothing in the neighborhood, it's so nice if you can start up something yourself, like create your own community, ask people like, hey, you want to join running with your dog? Like it's so cool to see like I work with clubs and like supporting clubs. So I think it's so cool to see how fast these clubs are growing and how much people are attracted to running with their dogs. And I think like if there's nothing in the neighborhood, it doesn't take much time to just like make a small group yourself.
How would you go about this? Because we actually did have a question on like, how can one start a club in their area?
Yeah, it's a good question. Like usually it's just like a bunch of friends that have the same interests, start to run together and invite people like, hey, you have a dog, you like to run, or like I know somebody who knows somebody. But then usually people will start to create like a club or a group on Facebook where they can invite people and post about their training runs, and then people see like, oh, hey, this looks interesting, or like, hey, this is fun, I could do this, I have a dog. So I think it just works like that, like in the especially in the start, like it's just a bunch of people with the same interest joining. And it's always like possible to ask for help. Like if you ask a Nonstop Dogwear, for example, if you need a kit, a test kit, just ask them. Maybe you get a yes, and then they'll send you one. And then then you can get started and people can try out the equipment. It's so cool. So it's even more motivating if you can start with the right equipment right away. It's something that fits good for your dog, for yourself. It makes the whole experience just more great, like fun.
I would definitely start out on Facebook as well.
Yes.
Like make a Facebook group and then just add people that's like,
yes.
they are
you
living
can
in the
invite
area,
people.
they have a dog, just like add people, post the training there, be there. Hope that some people show up, and usually eventually like there are a lot of not only CANICROSS but just like group runs in each city. People just love to show up.
Yes.
I think we are down to our last questions. One of them is, how do you transition to other pulling sports from CANICROSS, like to bike touring or to scooter?
Yeah. Like I said, like speed is like you need to prepare the body to train your dog to run fast, because a lot of dogs can run really fast, but their body is not ready to run that fast. They don't have the muscles built up correctly, so they get injured. But I think it's really nice to start with CANICROSS because it's a slower speed. The dogs have to learn to work a little bit like harder. at a slower speed. So I think it's very nice to start with this, and then like you can transition to like a bike and a scooter. Get your dog first to get used to a scooter, like have them maybe free running when you're biking a little bit, so they get used to the sounds of the bike, of the scooter, and then afterwards when you attach them, also just start easy, like a break the first trainings, and then after you see that your dog can do the distance, manages to pull, you can just start to release the brakes a little bit more. But also like when we are training for I have been doing bike ring and scooter before also. So if you're training them specifically for high speeds, it's very rare in training runs that we let them go full speed. Like I think people are always breaking them until around like 25, 26 average, for example. Because again, always training at high speeds is going to cause injuries. So of course, some trainings in the end, when you have build up, you can go fast and try, okay, now I'm going to do like a test run or something that you go pretty fast. So everything is about building up correctly, like the intensity, the speed, prepare the body for what it's going to do later on.
Proper warm up as well.
Yes. Super important. Rather do 5, if you have not much time, rather do 5 minutes just jogging instead of nothing. That's like
Absolutely.
better.
And maybe also don't start with full speed from the beginning. Like actually start with the braking part, and towards the end of the training you can like let go of the brakes and do a bit of a faster part. But I actually think that it might be easier to transition from canicross to wheels than from wheels to canicross, because what sometimes people don't necessarily think about is that if you manage with your dog, like, you know, pretty high speeds, 3 kilometers on the bike, that can be sometimes like half the time of what you would run canicross in. So you can also think sometimes about, just the time spent, like how much time your dog spends pulling. Because it can be that they easily manage the distance on bike and scooter, but struggle in canicross.
This is one of the mistakes I made not so long time ago, when I was always training them with a bike or the scooter, and I was like, I always felt they managed to run so well 5 kilometers on a bike or the scooter, but when I run at the bigger races, I felt they were tired after 5 kilometers. But then people started to tell me also like, but you have to think like the time that you're out, because I was always so focused on like doing the distance, but like the time is so important. Like they're working, like you say, almost half of the time extra. So then it's almost better to like train them on the bike and scooter for let's say 6-7 kilometers maybe, so that you at least have the same amount of time that you're gonna be outside for a 5K canicross.
Yeah, I think maybe we can finish with this question. Do I need a trainer to start with canicross?
No, I think like there's so much information already outside. Like there's so much information on the website of Nonstop, on their magazine, podcasts like this one, for example. So I think if you can find information, you can start without a trainer. It's also sometimes nice to figure out things yourself.
Yes.
In a way. And I have used trainers before, but I've never had a canicross trainer or anything like this because it didn't exist. Now there's people with a lot of knowledge that can actually help you, but you can also just ask people like for advice. Like it doesn't necessarily need to be a trainer. Like if you're wondering about something, and it's of course, like you can make some mistakes, but you also learn from these mistakes. When I started with it, there was not much information available. So I have learned a lot of things during the year. So if you want to go making mistakes, of course you can ask questions or have a trainer, but I don't think it's necessarily... No. I don't think you need necessarily a trainer.
I agree. I myself am a trainer because then I'm more likely to do my trainings. But as we mentioned before, Nonstop has one for like couch to 5K. Now we also have one 5K to race to make your 5K time faster. So you can get like training plans from there. And I think where I would, and it's not really like the trainer part that I would focus on there, but like organized group trainings can be nice. But there it's not really about like the trainer. It's more about just some extra experiences for your dog, being able to train on different things together with other dogs in a bit like more organized environment. So in that case, if you feel like your dog needs that extra support to like train together with other dogs, I think it can be very nice. But otherwise, just
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary. It's nice to have, but
Yes.
not necessary.
Yes. All right. I think we're at the end of this topic. If you could share just one advice with people in general about Canicross, what would it be?
It's the same as always. It's just to have fun.
Yeah. Have fun.
If you don't have fun, your dogs, they will feel it. So
Yeah.
it's for me
Absolutely.
the most important factor in this sport.
Do Canicross if you like running and having fun with it, but you don't have to force it if...
Yes.
Yeah.
And we are,
don't
we
like
are
it.
working with animals. It's even more important to have fun because they are basically doing this to please us. I think I obviously think they love this too, but still, like we owe it to them that we make this as fun and comfortable as possible.
Thank you so much for your
You're welcome.
tips and insight, Tessa.
Bye bye.